Alright, welcome everyone. Let's get right into it here. We're going to do a gorgeous painting of a nice waterway. Nice and relaxing. We're not going to get too I'm going to try to adjust my screen here. I have a new camera and I'm trying to just make sure that I line everything up correctly. All right, that's good. Okay, usually when I start my videos, I usually have my painting on the thumbnail photograph on YouTube. So most times you'll always notice that I paint usually what's on the picture on my videos. I think that's kind of a help. I know some people like to create like a small quick intro on their videos. I think I'm working toward that on my videos on my channel here to try to get more interesting videos, and kind of I had someone make me some great intros, so now I'm in the process of figuring out how to splice my intros into my videos. So it's just got a nice little introduction, maybe 10-15 seconds of a really cool looking video with some my name on it and some interesting different photographs and video with some music. So I have some cool things that are that I'm changing on my YouTube channel. So I'm kind of always trying to make things a little better. I have a better camera now, but the microphone isn't as good as the other setup I had. So my voice is probably not as isn't coming through as good as I'd like it to. I had some headphones with a microphone when I was using my iPhone previously on my videos. Now I've switched over to a small camera, which has great video quality, but the audio is not so great. So I'm gonna have to again probably upgrade to a better camera, video camera with really good sound on it, and I think I should be really there with some good intros and outros, and I think I'll be kind of keeping up with a lot of the people out there on YouTube that are making really fantastic videos. Okay, so let's get started here. I'm going to use a little different palette. This is more of a compact palette. This would be great for like outdoors, doing outdoor, compositions, small comps, maybe around your local neighborhood or in the park, or if you go to visit, maybe. I always try to bring a little bit of watercolor paints and a sketchbook and a pencil with me when I go to visit relatives or vacation, or sometimes I'll just take a day, maybe a Saturday or a Sunday, and go out and do some sketching and some painting on location. And this is a great kind of palette to use because it's very compact, lightweight. You can get all your colors in pretty much that you use on a regular basis. And I think I sectioned off some of these with some small pieces of plastic to give myself more of a selection. So I think I took these larger pans and then I crazy glued in some partitions in there. But other than that, it's pretty much got mostly all the colors I use. Maybe a few extras too that I don't normally have in my normal palette. And if you're interested in the colors I use, very simple, just type in My Palette by Chris Petri in your YouTube search bar, and then that'll show you all the colors that I use here. I pretty much use all these colors, just they're in a little different format, but pretty much you'll get the names of each of the colors I use, what brand I use, and what color to buy, the tube colors. So that's that's the palette I use. I like to keep all the paints moist, so I use some spritzer water, a spritzer bottle, and I just do this about an hour before I start painting. I spritz it a few times every 10-15 minutes until the paints are pretty moist on the top, and that's pretty much good. If you're going to do a really large painting, you might have to go to a bigger palette with fresh squeezed tube paint. But for doing smaller compositions like this here, we can use this, and this works fine with just a little bit of that activation of the paint with some spritzer bottle. And I just used a simple setup, some fresh water and a water bucket, some good Kolinsky Sable round brushes with good points, and if you have that and paint and some good paper, you're really set. I have a cool pad of paper here. This is Fabriano. This is like a practice pad. You can buy. I got these on online. Basically, it's a pad of paper, like 100 sheets, I think this is. And I bought like 50 sheets, and I got like 3 or 4 of these, and I just keep painting and painting and painting, and the paper never runs out. Great paper. And let's start out. We'll kind of lay out our sketch. So we're going to do a nice shore scene. So we're going to divide the paper. Let's say we're going to stick with a really, for design purposes, usually everyone will, usually you'll see what artists talk about dividing the space of your rectangle. So here you have your rectangle. How are you going to divide your space in your rectangle to make it very pleasing? So you ask yourself, where's the best place? And pretty much if you stick with thirds, you'll always get a great result. Sometimes you'll go halfway across depending on where your location is and what you're painting, but if you can adjust it to either a third here for your, let's say, your horizon line of the water, or a third here, so either a little bit lower horizon line with your land, if you're doing like a landscape like we're doing here, a landscape seascape, or you bring the land up higher like this, and then you make a smaller section of sky. So you can kind of choose whether you want to keep your sky larger or your sky smaller. But if you keep it at a third, being 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, if you keep it 2/3 land or 1/3 land, then it's more of a pleasing composition most times, and most artists will always agree with that. So that's a safe way to always go. So we're going to go here and we're going to do a nice distant shoreline first. So I'm going to contour draw. I'm working from a exercise book by Charles Reed. So I'm just doing the exercise in the book here. And so we have the distant shoreline. It's nice and light in the picture. What might be helpful too is if you're going to create a painting using my video, you can always take a picture with, like, if you have an iPhone or a camera, you can take a picture on the screen. Let's say you have it on an iPad or a laptop. You can take a picture of that, actually, the screen of the laptop or the iPad that you have, and you can print that out on a printer, and then you can use that for your reference photo. So you can have that set up across from you, or you can just have your device set up. Obviously, I think many of you probably already do that. You probably put your iPad across from you on the table, and then you draw and paint from that, which is a great way to go too. In any case, there's different creative ways to work to get your idea of your painting and your composition. So here I'm just following the contours of the land. And hopefully this pencil sketch you'll be able to see. I have good lighting. And if this pencil sketch doesn't come out good, then I know I will in future videos use a darker lead pencil. So for right now, this should be showing up because I do have good lighting here. So we'll see what happens. And we're going to go across here, and then there's an interesting rock formation here. I'm doing the reflection of the rock, so the rock's about here. And then here's the rock, reflection here. And another smaller rock here. The reflection underneath it. Then we have the shoreline here, and it comes down. That's pretty good. So that's a contour drawing of the land, and we'll do the, there's a pine tree over here, so we're going to sort of just put the pine tree like that. There's another one here a little bit, so we're just going to put some lines to indicate that we have another pine tree next to this one here, and we're going to, I'm just going to sort of do a quick contour drawing of just the sort of the shapes of the pine tree, just so we get a and if I make a little bit of an issue problem, like a little mistake on the drawing, I just take a little kneaded eraser and there is water over here. This might be a reflection here a little bit. This might be some shadow on this part of the land over here, and this might be some reflection on the water of the pine tree. Alright, so we have an interesting composition here, a pine tree on the left, and then we come over this way and we got the nice rock here, and then the land cropping here that goes across. And then also, there is a good amount of detail in the sky, so let me try to just do a little bit of pencil work just to help me with the sky. When I go in to do the sky, skies tend to be pretty free flowing. I like to do my skies pretty much improvisation. I will sometimes sketch in some clouds, but a lot of times I try to make the sky like not so important. Most of the time I'm doing a lot of details in the rest of the painting, so the sky, I usually don't go too many details in the sky. But here, let's kind of, I'm going to try to just get some detail in the sky because this is more simple. This design, this area of the painting with the land and the rock and the tree is sort of simple. So we can, you know, here I'm thinking, I'm working from this, again, this Charles Reed exercise in one of his books. It's the, I'm trying to think of it's Watercolor Secrets. That's the name of the book. It's a study book by Charles Reed. And I have all of his books, and there's always tons of exercises in the books, and this is one of them. And so he did some details up here on the sky, more details than maybe usual. Alright, so this helps me to, at least when I'm starting to do the sky, to get a nice little bit of prep work done with some light pencil lines, just to help me to keep my washes kind of similar to my exercise picture I'm looking, my exercise photo here. Okay, so now we're going to start with our paint. Now this is going to be a direct approach painting. I'm not going to glaze so much. There's different techniques we use in watercolor. Probably the two most popular ways to watercolor paint. Just a little bit of theory here as we're painting and starting our painting here. Usually there's two different types of painting styles. Most watercolor artists, you'll notice, have. Some artists will do the glazing technique, which is going light first and doing a full wash of lighter tonal values across the whole sheet, letting that dry for the most part, and then going over with a second wash with the darker tonal values. Here we're going to use the direct approach, and this is basically sort of going in first and trying to do everything at one time. Alla prima is the term for that. Alla prima is all in one at one time. So we're going to go in and paint alla prima with watercolor. We're going to do everything as if we're just doing the painting start to finish and that's it, and we're not going to basically be thinking in terms of putting a light wash first, letting that dry, and then going over top. We're just going to try to do everything at one time. So let's start out with that idea, and we'll start off with maybe our foreground. So we're going to have, let's see here, I usually take a tissue, have that on my palette area to dry off the brush if I need to quick. So we're going to go in and raw sienna, and we also have some yellow ochre up top here, and then some raw umber, maybe a little bit of cerulean blue, maybe a little bit of, put this over here, we have some mineral violet, which is like a purple color, and then some cobalt blue. So right now I'm just kind of laying out my colors, and sometimes I'll go straight into the paint and write on the paper, but if I what I do here is I put some paint out onto the palette so that I kind of know the idea of the colors I'm going to be using for the most part. So I'm going to kind of stick with these colors here for the most part for this painting. So I kind of already in my mind, I look at my photograph across from me, or my book, whatever I'm working from, or if it's in real life, like, you know, still life, or we're doing an outdoor painting and we're in plein air painting. I look out and I maybe put my colors I'm seeing or what I want to use first on the palette, just so I have it out there, and then I'm pretty much set for the rest of the painting. I know the main colors I'm going to use, and then from there we just use these colors over and over, and we just work from there. Alright, so let's get right into it here. Maybe a little bit of cad lemon too. So we're working with the so we're using our yellow ochre, raw sienna, and cadmium lemon yellow. Alright, so now this is good. We have our first section of the painting, the bottom shoreline here with some beautiful gold colors, and then we're going to go up into our second section of land here, and then maybe we're going to start to use some of the blue and purple and gray down this raw sienna and yellow ochre a little bit. A little bit of cerulean blue as well, cobalt blue, cerulean blue, and mineral violet purple. Dry off my brush a little bit. I'm always constantly rinsing my brush in the bucket. Dry off a little bit of the paint. This is really beautiful. This is sometimes, you know, you go and you travel to different places and you see, this reminds me of like by the Atlantic City, New Jersey, where I live nearby. It's a couple hours from where I live. This reminds me of that area where there's lots of water and like bays and inlets, and you see a lot of the shorelines like this with the tons of water and like sections of land that crop up from the water. And here I'm going with a little bit of mineral violet. Brushwork here is pretty simple. We're just following the pencil lines. And then here I'm just going to sort of tie in with that pine tree we're going to eventually paint here. So, and then as you can see, as I go further into the distance here, with these shore areas and mountains, distant mountains, it's going to be a little lighter and a little cooler. So that means we'll add a little more cerulean blue, mineral violet, so it's going to look like a grayer mixture because it's in the distance and it's kind of misty back there. And then to give it variety, we can still add a little bit of straight, straight color too as well, just to kind of make it a little exciting. If we stick to just all of a grayed down mixture, that sometimes can look a little bit, uninteresting at times maybe. So if we add the gray mixture across here, and then we add those little touches of pure pigment from the palette, that can give it an extra little bit of excitement that really brings the painting to another level. And we're just going to continue on, and then here and that's a great way, you'll probably hear me mention that a lot, a great way to kind of like bring interest to certain sections of your painting is to add those little bits of bright pigment, the straight tube color, into a spot here and there, and it really kind of makes things look exciting. Alright, let's work on this rock here. We're going to make this a cerulean blue, and I'm going to let my paint, the magic of watercolor paint, do some work for me here. I'm going to not sit here and overdo it with all kinds of brush strokes. I'm going to actually just let the paint mingle around on this rock here. Maybe in a different style painting we can use more brushwork and use a lot of more paint and more water. In this painting we're just going to kind of be subtle about things and let the water kind of mingle around in the paint mixture. And so here we have the nice, and maybe I'll go in with a little bit of French ultramarine to darken this up a bit. That's the other rock here. And I added a little bit of a burnt umber into the rock here too as well. I can get a smaller brush and do that. Give it a little bit more and I'll go in, we'll get some more. That's more of a bluish mixture there. Okay, so we have some great lines here. This is very relaxing. Long parallel lines across a painting will always make you feel relaxed. It's a relaxing style of design. Again, watercolor design. If you find that you're maybe interested in learning more about watercolor design, I have about maybe 5 to 10 videos just on design. So if you just type in Chris Petri design, you should have some videos come up that talk about design, and one of the design principles is doing parallel lines across your watercolor painting. Let's say this is a perfect time to use parallel lines in a watercolor painting, like along beach and seascapes and landscapes. You can get those long parallel lines across your sheet of paper you're painting, and that just gives you a beautiful, relaxing feeling. So it's a more comforting, relaxing painting to have. And then same thing, we're going to do that in the sky as well. We're going to add some long parallel lines in the sky here. So let's start the sky now. Before we do that, as a good habit, we always keep our palette tidied up and we clean the paints that we're using, the mixtures off. Especially now that we're going into the sky, because it's lighter colors, lighter tonal values, so you're going to see the variations in colors quite a bit with lighter tonal values. So we'll clean off our palette and then we'll start in again, and we're going to use some lighter tonal values. Let's keep this more, we'll do purple and gold color here, so that's the yellow ochre, and some cobalt blue over here. So we'll kind of separate these a bit. Maybe mix the cobalt blue a little, maybe a little cerulean blue. Okay, that should be good. If we, again, we pre-plan, we put out our colors we're going to use for the sky for the most part. Maybe a touch of orange in this. If you think you might want to add, I would say if we stick with the similar colors that we used for the bottom portion of our painting, that's going to really blend beautifully. If we use the same repeating colors up top, just in a lighter tonal value. So here now we're going to add a lot more water to the paint that we have put out on our palette to give us a much lighter tonal value. So if we were to go out, before we were using this much paint. So there's a big difference between that and this. So that's how we adjust our sky color. We're going to use way more water in our sky than paint. And we'll go right in and we'll start the sky. The orangey gold colors are more toward the base of the sky with a little bit of purple. And I try to vary it a little bit. And the sky goes quicker. We're using more water, so we're covering a lot more area quickly. And that's looking pretty good. And then we can get those lines. Now we're